Hi, I'm Rick Steele, and this is Scisco.
Tonight, we look at the threat of hackers.
Three, two, one.
With the public becoming increasingly concerned with internet security, we want to establish the extent of the threat and why we're being threatened.
Hacking originated in MIT during the 60s as a term for an elaborate prank. Some stunts included building a replica car on top of the university's dome. In 1972, John Draper, aka Captain Crunch, discovered that a toy whistle given away in the cereal of the same name could be used to mimic the 2600 Hz tone used to set up long-distance phone calls. The result was the craze of phone phreaking. The explosion of the internet now gave hackers a new direction and opened a world of opportunities. Kevin Mitnick seized this chance and unlawfully hacked into and copied operating system software from an American firm. He was also found to have stolen 20,000 credit card numbers. He was finally apprehended in 1999 after being on the run from the FBI for 4 years. The widespread use and popularity of a PC and Windows combination has also ensured a continual threat from malicious hacker programs such as viruses. Viruses such as Melissa and I Love You were unleashed at the turn of the millennium and clogged business and home computers around the world. Viruses continue to thrive to this day. And now we are lucky enough to have Mr. Kevin Mitnick himself on the phone. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Mitnick.
It's a pleasure, Rick.
So, how did your interest in hacking start?
I actually started social engineering when I was 12 by bypassing the punch card system used on the LA bus network.
What do you actually mean by social engineering?
Social engineering is a collection of techniques used to manipulate people into performing actions or divulging confidential information. In 1988, I successfully hacked into the DEC network and made copies of their software currently in development. I was subsequently arrested shortly after and sent to a federal prison. One of the prosecutors walked into the court and told the magistrate that if I had access to a telephone, I could start a nuclear war. I was therefore put in solitary confinement for 8 months. After I was released, I was placed on probation. Even my phone was tapped. I therefore figured out who was monitoring me and went about gathering intelligence by intercepting their conversations. The government deemed this as hacking, and so issued a warrant for my arrest. I thought, hey, catch me if you can. I constructed a new identity, which enabled me to find somewhere to live and to work. I chose the name Eric Weiss, which I knew was the real name of Harry Houdini. My downfall was that I continued to pursue my hobby of hacking. When the FBI finally caught up with me, I was arrested facing 25 charges of computer and telephone fraud. My case was so complex that I was in prison for 4.5 years before coming to charge. Of course, today I work as an independent security consultant and continue to write books on hacking.
Thank you very much for spending your time with us, Mr. Mitnick. So, from the days of old to the technology of new, times have changed and it is no longer possible to hack with just a whistle and phone. Advanced security software is constantly being updated and modified to prevent hackers and crackers alike. But they still get in, which leaves us asking one question: how do you become a hacker?
To answer this question, with us right now is the editor of Jargon File and the writer of what many consider to be the definitive guide of how to hack, Eric Raymond. Thank you for spending your precious time with us, Mr. Raymond. Can I first ask you, what skills do you feel are required to become a successful hacker?
First, you must learn programming in multiple languages. You can't just learn how to program in one language because hacking isn't as simple as that. I recommend you start with Python, as it is a very kind language for beginners, but can also be very powerful and flexible for larger projects. Java is also very useful, but is more complicated than Python. I recommend that you learn Java as a second language. C or C++ is required as it is a core language of Unix. It isn't a great language, however, as its lower levels suck up a lot of memory. I would recommend you try and avoid it if possible, but there are times when it must be used. A good alternative to C is Perl, as it doesn't have the memory consumption of C and is used a lot on active websites.
Are all of those languages really necessary?
While you may use some more frequently than others, they each represent a very different approach to hacking. You will of course also need to know HTML and XML. It is rare that you actually use HTML while hacking, but it drives the web, which is a hacker's favourite toy.
Okay then, so I do need those languages, but will I need any specialist equipment to hack?
In terms of hardware, no. It used to be that specialist machines would be required, but that stopped being so since like the mid-90s. I recommend Linux over Windows, however, as Windows doesn't have the grunt required. I often compare hacking with Windows like dancing in a body cast. Once you have Linux, run it, learn it, tinker with it, do whatever you want with it, but most of all, enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raymond.
It is quite clear then that not just anyone can become a hacker. It takes a great deal of time and skill to break into even the simplest system.
But what about the more technical side of hacking? What happens at the base level? For that, I sought out Budi Arieff and Dennis Besnard, university lecturers and experts on computer hacking. Here we are at the University of Newcastle upon Tyne, and thank you very much for joining me, Budi and Dennis.
Hello.
Okay, so Budi, if you could tell me first of all, how do you actually hack?
Well, to be honest, there are three different ways you can intrude into a computer system. There's a physical intrusion, which requires you to have access to the machine you wish to crack and either insert a disk or remove from the hard drive. There's the system intrusion, which requires you to have some low-level access and exploit vulnerabilities to gain administrative privileges. Or you can use remote hacking, which is more common, although harder, and it means that you have to access the network without having any contact with the system previously.
If we could please focus on remote intrusion for now, what steps would a hacker normally take to gain access?
As with most things, planning and preparation are highly important. A hacker will first start a process known as footprinting, which is effectively gathering a profile on that which you plan to hack. The profile will include security procedures, to have an intranet, a DNS settings, remote access points, and all that other network stuff. Next, they will begin scanning, which involves looking for the weak spots. It's kind of like a burglar walking around the outside of a house and checking the windows and doors to see where they can get in. Finally, enumeration. This is the first intrusive step a hacker will take, as they go into the system through the gaps that they found in the scanning to get a valid username. Once they have a username, all you'll need is a password.
But surely getting the password would be much harder.
Not really. There's very different methods needs to be done. Like some file transfer protocols do not encrypt the password as it's sent from client to server, so the hacker must interrupt this transfer signal. This is known as clear text sniffing. However, if the password is encrypted, then there are numerous tools such as Lockcrack 3, which can break the encryption, or they could use a replay attack by programming a client software and using the encryption password to log in. Or sometimes people are idiots, as they are, and they may write their password down and leave it with the computer, or a hacker could just trick them into giving it to them. This doesn't require any physical access to the system, which you have to hack.
Although there are other ways into a system. A common one is the buffer overflow bug. When a memory buffer has too much memory, it will overflow. This gives the hacker the opportunity to get into this and plant a piece of coding that would usually be noticed. System configuration bugs are also popular. New computer systems have a default setting and can be easily accessed if known about, or a system administrator could leave the root password blank as they are eager to get their system up and running. If known to the hacker, this again can make the network an easy target.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. It's been most enlightening.
Cheers.
No problem.
We've been having some good feedback from you viewers out there, so let's go and have a look at some of it right now.
First, we will be hearing from Anne Hallgrave, who is 25 and from London.
Having a website hacked is like having someone break into your own house. It's such a horrible feeling knowing these people can access pretty much all of your private documents from the safety of their own homes.
Now, I have had my house broken into, and it's not a nice experience at all. Let's hope something can be done about them. Now, moving on, Bob Smith has emailed us.
I used to be a hacker, but I got caught. I suppose the main reason for hacking was to make a name for myself, and also to make a bit of money out of it. I now help companies to protect themselves from attacks.
Well, an insight there into why someone would want to hack. At least you now help the good side, Bob. Now, let's go into a little more detail and really try to understand these people. When we asked a quota of 164 hackers why they hack, this is the response we got. Almost half hacked out of curiosity and the need for a challenge, whilst 24% actually hack for recognition or friendship. The remaining 27% of that quota hack for criminal purposes. It has come to our attention that the majority, if not all hackers, use an alias when online. This could be because the aliases provide the hacker with a second identity, which forms a barrier between the online community and the real life of the hacker. Just because a hacker may be highly intelligent, it does not mean they are also highly confident when interacting socially. An alias can also briefly conceal the hacker's true identity from the law. So how are hackers portrayed in the media? Since the early 80s, the media has glorified hacking through mediums such as cinema and newspapers. In 1983, War Games was released worldwide, depicting hacking as an adventurous pastime. There has been significant moral panic surrounding what can be physically achieved by these individuals. Filmmakers have continued to produce films of this genre, with each new movie creating a greater gulf between reality and fantasy. There is a danger, however, that having viewed these films, people will become curious and consequently learn how to hack themselves. So where does this leave hacking in the future? The future of hacking is really concerning for all those who have computers. With the vast amount of free tools available on the internet, it's not a surprise that hacking will become more accessible in the future. With the increase in hackers and cases of hacking throughout the world, we must ask ourselves the question, is the computer protection software currently available powerful enough to cope with hackers? The reality is no. Hackers could be placed into two main groups. One group have a small amount of skill and therefore rely on social engineering and a few simple things such as hardware keyloggers. The other group of hackers rely on immense technical and coding skills. In the past, Microsoft have tried to increase the security of Windows XP by releasing Service Pack 2. This update helped stop buffer overflows, therefore reducing the vulnerability of your computer when and if it crashes. The Shadow Walker. Could this be the ultimate tool for the hacker? The Shadow Walker is a state-of-the-art rootkit which can allow the hacker access to any computer without the owner knowing. Once on the system, the Shadow Walker can hide itself from the operating system, making it impossible to find. The most worrying thing is that it can stop itself from showing it as a running process and doesn't use any memory, even when it is running in the background. The Shadow Walker can install itself from any pluggable device such as digital cameras, USB drives, printers, and even scanners. However, computer users need not panic just yet. The Shadow Walker is only a research project to show how vulnerable our computers actually are, and it just goes to show what sort of software can be produced in the future. That's all for tonight's program. See you again next week.
Yeah.